Good afternoon. My name is Bill Warren. I am the Associate Director of the school, and I'm also the Director of the graduate program here. I am also a clinical associate professor. I teach in the graduate studios in the spring semester, in which I teach healthcare internationally and nationally. Like many of the faculty in our graduate program, I am a practicing architect. I'm the president of a firm in Chicago. That's one of the things that separates our school a little bit from others. So I'm really pleased that you've chosen to join us today. I'll get through this quickly so that we can get to the food. We're also going to have a discussion with some current graduate students so you can get the truth about the program from them. Now, our M.Arch program, let me just go over the basics of it right now. There's a common core of courses, 4 design studios, architectural theory, structural planning, professional practice, and a professional issues elective. Okay. Now, this is a very small number of hours in relationship to the total number of hours that you'll take as a graduate student. And I'll show you how that works here. You can see basically that the core courses total 34 hours, okay? But that the degree requires 62 hours. So you have 28 hours of electives to choose during your 2 years in the M.Arch program. This is, as you're looking at other schools, this is one of the things that you're going to want to look at, because one of the things that separates Illinois from many other graduate programs is the ability for you to design your education over the 4 semesters of the M.Arch program. Now, another thing that separates us are the joint degree programs. Caitlin, one of our students who's going to speak later, is in one of the joint degree programs. We have combined joint degree programs in which you can receive an M.Arch plus an MBA, an M.Arch or a Master's of Urban Planning, an M.Arch plus a Master's in Construction Management, or an M.Arch plus a Master's in Structures. The last 2, Construction Management and Structures, are held in conjunction with the School of Civil Engineering, our good friends up on the other end of campus. The School of Civil Engineering, you may or may not know this, is ranked number 1 in the United States in civil engineering. So this is quite a potent combination. We have graduates from these programs working around the world in structures firms, in positions of management, in positions of construction management, and also as developers. A number of people who take their MBA go on to develop. Currently, about 25 of our 180 active graduate students are enrolled in joint degree programs. Now, we also, as of last year, the faculty has reorganized themselves into something called program areas. These are areas in which the faculty chose to self-organize. Each faculty member said, I want to be a part of this group, this program area, and we're going to develop coursework around those areas. So they include urbanism, health and well-being. I happen to be a member in health and well-being, fabrication and detail, performance, and by performance we mean high-performance buildings, preservation, heritage, and architectural history. Now, the flexibility is a good thing and a bad thing, in that some of you may be sitting there thinking, I don't know what I want to do. Okay? How am I supposed to design this program of study when I'm interested in a whole bunch of different things? And we'll talk about that with some of the current grad students, how they made those selections, because this is the single aspect of a personal journey that your graduate education really needs to be. Now, if you choose to apply to graduate school here, you're going to become a member of quite a large fraternity, sorority of past graduates. We've graduated more than 10,000 people from our M.Arch program since we started this program in 1873, Nathan Rickard. Our graduate program graduated the first woman architect. We graduated the first African American architect in the United States, and we graduated the first person to become licensed as an architect. We have a long history of leadership in the architectural profession, and that shows up in the people who come to our reviews, who participate in our studios, and that's one of the things we'll talk about with our grads in a few minutes. Now, the other thing that helps distinguish us is research. No. We believe very strongly that research and design are equal components to a graduate education and to an advanced practice today in the field of architecture. So you'll have an opportunity as a grad student to work with many of our faculty. Professor Laram, many of you may know already, runs a very interesting energy simulation laboratory, net zero laboratory that grad students work with him on. We have a number of other faculty who are doing very advanced research. That research is often available to you as students. This is what we're known for. Okay? When people leave our graduate program, people around the world know that you understand buildings, how they go together, what holds them up, how they're built, etc. Now, we're also interested, as I said before, in research, and that is, how do you advance the theoretical boundaries of contemporary construction? So we do that in a number of different ways, through research, through design-build projects, and through your studio work. Now, we currently have 3 study abroad opportunities in the M.Arch program: Munich, Shanghai, and Stockholm. Molly, whom I'm hoping you all have met. If you have not, Molly knows the correct answers. You should never ask me a question that has a factual answer, okay? Molly or Chris are the right people. I hope also that at some point you'll sign in with Molly, let her know that you're here. Whether you RSVP'd or not, that would be important to Molly. Now, this year we also started something called the Chicago Studio. It's being run this semester for the first time ever in the history of the school. In this building, the Santa Fe building, you guys know this building? Okay. Not a bad building, okay? Rehabbed by Frank Lloyd Wright, okay? He was the rehab architect. In that building are some of the most significant firms in the world, including Skidmore, Getch, VOA. Our Chicago studio has space within the offices of VOA, and for an entire semester our students are immersed in the study of urbanism in this semester. They take seminars with professionals, and one of the courses they take is that they visit a number of different architectural firms. Those firms discuss philosophy, they discuss finance, they discuss process. That's the Chicago studio. Now, one of the things that separates undergraduate and graduate education, and I want you to understand that there is a huge difference between the two. If you believe that by going to graduate school here, that you are just going to continue your undergraduate education and it's going to get a little harder, but not different, that's a mistake. It's not just quantitatively harder, it's qualitatively different in the way the education is delivered and your role within that education. So what we are trying to do, and what we have done in the past, is to develop people who go on to become leaders in the industry. And they become leaders in various ways. We all know that the practice of architecture today is changing rapidly. We have people who graduate from our M.Arch program who go into traditional practice. They go into theoretical practice. They go into the construction industry, urban design, community development and services, public and corporate art institutions, theater stage set design, industrial design, furniture design, lighting design, and public policy making. So an M.Arch is not a tool for becoming a traditional architect. It's certainly one option that's open to you. But the intent of the M.Arch is to open an entire floodgate of opportunities upon your graduation. Now, this is really the strength of the program. You have probably met or hopefully studied with a few of these people. Okay? Next semester, for example, Professor Bubekri, some of you might have him or have had him for lighting, will be away from school on a Fulbright Fellowship, one of the most prestigious fellowships in the world. Okay? Professor Hyde Miners won a National Humanities Center Award. We've Historic Preservation Book Awards, on and on. We have a number of our professors who are fellows in the American Institute of Architects. Among those is Professor Poss. Professor Poss was going to join us today. He was unable to. I'm going to run very briefly through his presentation because I think it's critical. Any of you guys taken Professor Poss yet? Not yet, okay. I think it's important to understand the range of project types that you'll see as a graduate student. The hospitals that I work on in my studios come in somewhere around 600,000 square feet. Okay? Professor Poss works on projects that might be 6 square feet. Okay? Professor Poss is particularly interested in something called critical regionalism. When you get to your theory class in your first semester, you'll know what that is, unless you know already, hopefully. Critical regionalism is about the study and the application of architecture critically to a very specific area, and Professor Poss is interested in here. Okay? So he's run a number of different projects. This is the tribute to Olympic athletes in Champaign that his students have worked on and helped build. Here's the ZAG podium project. Actually, you can see this is less than 6 square feet. This is a design-build studio. Professor Poss is part of the detail plus fabrication faculty. And what they are interested in is the relationship of making to designing. Okay. Now his practice, Professor Poss, is a fellow in the American Institute of Architects. He's an FAIA. And he didn't become that by designing huge skyscrapers. He's known for designing these beautiful objects that sit in the Midwest prairie. For example, this meditation hut in Champaign. His studios, the small studio that he's run almost every year since 1994, are all design-build studios. That means as students you design a project and then you help build it. This was the first one they did, a pavilion in East St. Louis. The small studio has done chairs, they've done small pavilions, they've done all sorts of streetscape design. For example, this work, which was just, the studio is underway right now. It's a studio that's examining the use of concrete for the creation of objects. They had an amazing midterm review in downtown Urbana, in which they had an exhibit of these gorgeous objects students created using different forms of concrete. Professor Poss often offers this studio called the Essential House. This is a house of, I believe it's 100 square feet. Okay. The winner of this prize, the Archon Prize, wins a cash award. He also has done a lot of work in food. Now, you may be thinking, what, architecture has nothing to do with food. Well, if you're interested in sustainability today, and you're interested in design, you have to be interested in food. Okay? So for example, this is a folding farm, and this entire apparatus was designed and built by students. You can see the concept drawings on the left, the completed project on the right. Here's the second iteration of this project. This is currently being used to move food from the sustainable farm on the South Campus here to the farmers market that happens on the quad. This project has won significant awards, including an AIA Small Projects Competition Award. This is a student project winning an AIA award. The small studio is also working on pavilions on the sustainable farm at Illinois, student work. And there's Professor Poss pouring some concrete in a tire. Okay. Here's the structure is under construction. Students following all safety procedures. And the finished product, now displaying food, herbs, vegetables, etc. This project also won an AIA Central Illinois Sustainability Design Award. Now, I've asked Professor Armstrong, Professor Paul Armstrong, to mount some of his student work in the West Gallery here. Professor Armstrong teaches a high-rise studio, more than 1 million square feet in his projects. So you can get a rough idea of the scope of the opportunity in the design studios, from Professor Poss's studios, through Professor Armstrong's, all the way through landscape and urbanism projects at much larger scales. Those are opportunities that are available to you within the graduate program. And working with people like Professor Poss is one of the great joys of graduate education. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to ask our students to come up, and we're going to talk now, and they're going to talk much more than I. Come on up, come on up. I will introduce them briefly, and then this is also Riefstack, Robert Prohaska, Minhu Kim, and Caitlin Gearson. Okay. And I will, where'd you come from? Where'd you do your undergrad?
I did my undergrad in here at Irvine, and I'm from Champaign originally.
I did my undergrad here at the University of Illinois, and I'm from the northwest suburbs of Chicago.
I also did my undergraduate here, but I came from South Korea, and I am an international student, having both degrees from the same institute here.
Okay, I'll be the oddball. I did my undergraduate degree at the University of Virginia, and I'm originally from Colorado.
So, Caitlin, since you've got the mic, I'll ask you for, you've designed a very interesting program for yourself. Could you describe how you're using your electives and what degrees you're going to leave with?
Okay, so I'm actually doing the structures concentration here, which is a 2-year program through the School of Architecture, where I do a lot of structures courses essentially that deal more with buildings, building analysis, understanding how they're designed and constructed, and that along with the dual degree were kind of what brought my interest to the school in the first place. The other thing is I'm actually interested in health and well-being as a piece of that, of high performance as well. And so Professor Warren's studio is also one that brought me here. So I kind of am on a combo track of I am trying to weave my way through the performance area and the health and well-being section. So my 2 years here are going to be fairly laid out for me, but I enjoy everything so far, so I'm happy.
So this is your
Second.
graduation year.
Yes.
I'm not sure what to call that. And everyone here has some sort of assistance this year. How has that worked for you? What form of assistance have you had in your graduate program? Financially.
Financial-wise, the first year I received a full scholarship that came with a full tuition waiver with the stipend, and I also held an hourly position as a graphic design assistant. And this year it carried over and I became a full-time graduate assistant with publication, which is designing posters and flyers that is published by the university, by the School of Architecture.
And how have you sort of crafted your graduate degree?
Well, I'm a special case because I come from South Korea. I had to serve in Korean military for a couple of years. So after finishing my junior year, I went back to Korea and then came back 3 years after. And middle of my senior year, I had to decide if I wanted to continue studying architecture or not. And at that point, I made a decision that I wanted to become an architect, but I wasn't sure which type of architect that I want to be. So I needed some space or flexibility that he mentioned during the presentation, and it worked out very nicely. I was able to try different scales of projects throughout the graduate study. I started with the urban scale design project in Barcelona, and then I also did a hospital design in the last spring in China. And during summer, I traveled to Haiti, and that was part of the summer course, which gave me a chance to work with the community-based design project. So I'm really poking all these different areas because I'm still curious. I don't have any background. Well, there's no one in my family related to architectural fields, so I had to do my own research and try it. So it worked really well for me, and I'm very grateful.
So, Rob, you're on some form of assistance,
Yeah.
financial. So, what are you doing this year?
This year I'm a history TA for one of the senior history courses. I'm still kind of on the fence as far as what I want to do within architecture, which Professor Warren mentioned the fact that in grad school you really have the option to explore that. And I've been on the border between going into a traditional practice as well as going into history and theory. So that's kind of my concentration right now. And being a teaching assistant in the history program really allows me to explore that. And then at the same time, I'm also a hourly position with the gallery assistant program.
I think we're one of the schools of architecture that offer not just an M.Arch degree, but we also offer an M.S. degree, and we offer a Ph.D. in architecture. Should Rob choose to go down that road of history and he wants to teach,
he'll probably receive his PhD, hopefully from here, but somewhere along the line. Okay. So what are your interests right now? What's interesting to you right now?
So, compared to Caitlin, where she's in more of the structures option, which is a little more focused and has a stricter schedule, I have a pretty flexible schedule as far as what I want to take. So right now I'm taking the theory course, which is required, but I would take it again if I could. And then also the option, which if some of you are seniors, you have the option to do this now. I did it as a senior, but it's more so for the graduate program. There's independent studies where you team up with a faculty member, you write your own course essentially, and just one-on-one, you kind of get to create your own course and show yourself what you want to do. I did that last semester as a senior with Professor Coopers in the history department. Right now, because of I'm taking the structural planning course that's required as well as the theory course, but next semester I'm looking into taking several history courses as well as probably another independent study on theory still being decided.
So Elsa's father is quite an accomplished architect here in Champaign. How is that background? You heard Ben say, right. So how's that impacted your education?
Well, that's a tough question. I guess I really kind of had a focused track at first. I knew I wanted to become a licensed architect, and I knew all the steps to achieve that, which is definitely obviously doable here. But another challenge for me is to kind of break away from that and find my own path, not just follow in my father's footsteps, to kind of explore. He has a local firm in Champaign, it's a small firm, and to maybe kind of experience a larger firm that does maybe international design, which is definitely an opportunity here, maybe through the Chicago studio, or just the fact that there's such a huge alumni base. There's a lot of opportunities to make connections and reach beyond that just small firm in Champaign.
And Elsa's going to Chicago next semester. Maybe, hopefully. What interested you in that?
Well, initially I didn't even think about it. I didn't think it was an option for me. I don't know why. But then I went to the information session, and basically you take all the same classes that you would here, but at a different level because you're in Chicago, and you get to go to a different firm, I think practically every week, and these are like major firms, and talk to lead designers, and you also get to explore Chicago architecture. I think one of the classes offered next semester is literally exploring Chicago architecture, and you go around to different buildings inside the city and in the suburbs, which is an excellent opportunity. There's also an opportunity to have an internship during the school year. So I believe next semester there's classes just on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So you have Monday and Tuesday open to have an internship, which is a really great opportunity to also carry that internship into the summer, and then hopefully line up a job once you graduate.
Great. So I kind of want to have this be a question and discussion with you guys and them, since you shouldn't believe anything I say. So does anybody have any questions or comments on anything you've heard so far? Yeah.
So you talked about the joint degrees and so you said you're doing structures as a joint degree. How much leniency do you still have in electives after you factor in everything that's required for the dual degree?
So unfortunately for me, I don't have very much leniency. It's fairly set out for me, mostly because I have a couple classes to make up that you guys get in undergrad that I did not receive. So I'm actually in steel with most of you right now, and I'll be in concrete with you too next semester. And so that's taking up a couple of my elective hours right now. Other than that, within the degree, you do get a couple elective options. They do encourage that you fill them with structures electives, and then one of them does have to be of the professional practice or the professional one of the elective types, but it's filled through a structures concentration. So they do highly encourage that you kind of take on as many of the structures classes as possible, but you do still get a choice, so they're there, just not so much for me.
Any other questions of these guys? What's it like to be a grad student as opposed to an undergrad?
It's cool. I like it.
What's different?
So since I'm assuming everyone in this audience right now goes to Illinois, unless if some of you are here who aren't from Illinois, welcome. But as many of you know, you kind of have your courses all set up in undergrad. They tell you take this in studio. They say this is the project, this is what you're going to do. And you kind of create this fundamental knowledge base for yourself. And then in undergrad they go, show me what you can do with that. The other great thing is that a lot of you might know some of the faculty here, and although they are completely different programs, it's nice to know some of the faculty going into it. I can't say I really knew that many faculty my senior year. I probably knew like 4, and now, for better or for worse, I probably know all the faculty, and they probably know me now. So put yourself out there and show people what you can do based on what you learned in undergrad. The faculty are going to treat you differently, and that's a good thing because you will have a degree. Come May, most of you will have your first college degree, and that really says a lot. And you want to prove to them what you can do with that.
Well said. Elsa, what do you think? What's different than last year?
I think that just the flexibility is amazing. I have the opportunity to take classes just not just in the School of Architecture, but also in the art design department. That's something that I didn't really have room for in undergrad, and I think that's a really great opportunity to kind of explore your interests outside of architecture, but at the same time you can kind of tie those back into what you want to focus on in architecture.
It's a really important point. Those 28 hours of electives can be taken anywhere in the university. So my interest is in public health. I would have been over in public health taking my electives if I was in grad school now. Elsa's in art because that's her interest. Rob's probably in art history. This is a big university, and it's quite an extraordinary opportunity to go and dabble in classes in other schools around the university. Good point. Maybe about 6 years.
So before I started my graduate study, I had a fantasy that I would have more time to have fun with my own, but time commitment-wise, it's basically the 5th year of the undergraduate. It's not like you would have time to, but basically what I'm saying is that you have flexibility to develop your own interests, but that doesn't mean that you're going to have time to, just go to gym all the time or have a morning coffee and all that. That was different than my expectation, but it worked out better because I had interest in both MBA degree and also construction management, and I didn't choose to do joint degree with either of them, but I did get myself exposed to both fields in a way. Right now I'm taking a class in civil engineering, and I also had interest for more humanitarian studies. So I'm taking a class in geography department that's studying about the democracy and environment. And as everyone else said, like the flexibility really helps you to develop your own interest and build your own career. I think that way it's a really good program.
One thing that's different course-wise from the graduate program is there's also seminars, which you don't really have in undergrad. And seminars are fantastic because it gives you a chance to really see some of the work that your professors are doing. Professors kind of write their own seminars and show off what their interests are and what their research is in. And I think it's a really great way to have a small group of students. It's usually no more than like 10 or 12 students, I would say, in a seminar, really focus for a semester on the passion of one of your faculty members.
Yeah, you might want to take a look. Those seminars, one-page descriptions are posted. And as Rob said, they're all over the place in terms of content and delivery. It's a very interesting difference between the two degree programs. Good point. So Caitlin, you're new here. What's studio culture like? Are people supportive?
Studio culture here is actually a lot more supportive than it was at my undergrad. My undergrad was extremely competitive, so it was almost Darwinism at its best. It was if you had to fight for it in undergrad, and so it was nice to definitely come to a community where you can work with each other and get to be a little more collaborative. I know at UVA, if I tried to have a desk crit with a fellow student, it was very much just, no, it didn't happen very frequently. And then coming here, another one is the relationship you have with your professors in grad school is going to be a lot different than, at least I see it as a lot different than I had in undergrad. In undergrad, a lot of my professors, they definitely peered over you. It was very much what they wanted you did. You didn't have much freedom and you did what they told you to. Here you create a discussion, you lead the discussion, you lead your design, you take it where you want it to go. And so it's a lot more open in terms of design opportunities and the relationships that you have with both your classmates and your professors. And so for me, I really like the collaborative aspect of that amongst everyone.
Elsa's taking Professor Warfield's class. Professor Warfield is sort of a national treasure here. I'm not sure how you got in there. What's the studio culture like in Professor Warfield?
It's really amazing. So Professor Warfield he's a professor emeritus, right? So he's retired, technically. And he has traveled to every place you can imagine. And basically our project is each one of us is designing an inn, like a 16 to 24 unit inn at a UNESCO World Heritage Site, either in Greece, Australia, or Mexico. And I'm designing mine in Mexico, and it's challenging because it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and there's all these regulations and rules. And at the same time, you have to kind of learn a new culture. And it's just a really interesting opportunity. And Professor Warfield has so many stories, and you sit down at a desk crit, and he'll give you advice about your design, but he'll also tell you 3 stories about when he was in San Miguel de Allende and did this and met this person. And it's just the amount of knowledge that he has is incredible, and it's really nice to learn from him.
Other questions, comments? Yeah.
I'm curious as to, you said you did an independent theory study. Can you maybe just elaborate?
Yeah, that specific one was done during my senior year as an undergrad, but they're very much, I would say, a graduate program thing. Not many seniors do them. I had an interest in pursuing more of a history and theory path in my coursework, and at the undergrad level there weren't any theory courses until you get to grad school, and that's a required course. And because of that, the opportunity to take an independent study, which I would highly encourage everyone to do, especially if you have a specific interest that maybe doesn't fit within any of your coursework. I came up with something I wanted to study. I approached a professor, it was Professor Cooper's. He's in the history department, and I said, look, I'm really interested in doing this, but none of my courses really offer that specifically. And so he worked with me one-on-one. We wrote a syllabus, and throughout the semester, we did research on single-family housing in the post-war era. And at the end of the semester, I kind of created like a mini thesis and presented it. And I'm looking to do it again. I don't have anything written right now, but if you have anything, even if it's not fully fleshed out, I had an idea. I approached a faculty member with it, and they really, the 2 of us together created it, and it was amazing. I would suggest it for everyone.
Yeah, the process is interesting. I had 2 students approach me who were interested in healthcare. And so this semester, we're doing just with 2 students an independent study on critical issues in contemporary healthcare architecture. So there's all of this expertise that lives in the faculty. It's your responsibility to find that expertise to match up your interests. But very few of the faculty members here are going to say no to you if you present them with a legitimate, real interest and a passion. It's a good question. Any other questions? Okay, I'm just going to wrap up then. I'm going to stand on my knees here. Graduate school is hard. Okay? I'm not going to pretend that it's not. Okay? It's not that you're not going to be prepared, because you will be prepared because of your undergraduate education here. The trade-off, though, is that it requires, as you heard today, a level of intellectual courage that may not be required at the undergraduate level. The ability to stand up and argue for your position, okay, is something that we try to develop and foster. So in return for bringing that intellectual courage, we promise that when you leave here, you'll be ready to become a leader. That's the trade-off. Okay? So I know everybody wants to eat. If you have questions, feel free to contact me. If it's a factual question, contact Molly or Chris. Feel free to stop in the office at any time. This is the first year that we are allowing students to submit portfolios digitally. So you don't have to spend the money to print your portfolio. Go to our website and look at the requirements if you choose to submit that way.